those of you in person, those watching from home or wherever you may be. So nice to be outside. A little bit of wind, but not too much. But back the summer calendar here at the Irmas Campus, 6 p.m. from this point forward. So really nice to have you here. Before we start, I know people are spread out. We're being careful, but you could turn to the people somewhat near you, wave, and introduce yourself. Share a name, say Shabbat Shalom. Fist bumping is okay. I noticed that. Yes, it's taken off. So I think we're going to begin. Hopefully you all have a siddur. You should all have a siddur near you. We're going to begin with Hine Matov, how wonderful it is to be together, to be in this space, to be starting our summer series together. It's wonderful to be with Cantor Gurney. I'm Rabbi Nickerson, for those of you who don't know, Cantor Gurney, right? All right, Hine Matov, how wonderful it is for us to be together. Cantor, I know you want to continue with Nedid Nefesh, which is also on page 10. Any special significance as to why you want to do that? We don't always do that on Friday night.
We don't, and it was really composed as a Zmira, Shabbat song. It wasn't part of the official Shabbat liturgy, but it's so beautiful, this poetry, like a deer leaping to its heart delight. That is we Jews towards Shabbat, right? And it's filled with this sweetness and a deep kind of love. And almost every melody I know for Yiddi Nefesh is just beautiful, right? And it really, really fits the words. So this is a melody set some years ago by Craig Taubman, and it's beautiful. So sing along. Middle of page 10. The words are all there for us. So hum along, sing along. Make up your own syllables. No one will know. Yedi nefesh avarachaman avarachaman mishok avdecha el ritzonecha Yedi nefesh avarachama avarachama Bishoch avdecha el ritzonecha Yarutz avdecha כמו היין ישתחווה אל מול עריך. ירוץ עבדך כמו היין ישתחווה אל מול עריך. ידי נפש אברחמן Bishok avdecha el ritzonecha
We're going to continue with Shalom Aleichem on page 24. It speaks of angels and welcoming angels for Shabbat. Cantor, Gurney, and I were with some adorable angels this morning. Our preschoolers have a tradition called Kadima, which means going forward. It's in lieu of graduation. It's just another way of basically saying graduation from preschool, but with a little Jewish intention behind it. And so all of these adorable 4- and 5-year-olds getting up on a little stage, singing songs about Torah, singing Hine Ma Tov in their adorable little suits and dresses, and truly was this a perfect way to bring in Shabbat. The idea that that next generation of angels, where you can look into those little eyes and all you really see is hope. And Shabbat is our time to be able to take away some of that darkness and the negativity of the world and really focus on just imagining the eyes of adorable little children and the hope that we can find during Shabbat. So page 24.
Shalom, Hashem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, melech malchei hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
In a few Shabbats from now, I'm going to be celebrating Shabbat in Jerusalem. There are about 51 of us from the synagogue going to Israel on a B'nai Mitzvah trip. I'm taking my whole family. I'm very excited. My middle daughter, of my children, my middle daughter is the only one who's been to Israel, and she actually just got back 2 weeks ago because she went with Browerman Elementary School, the 6th grade class. It's pretty incredible. 6th graders going without any parent chaperones to Israel for 10 days with just some teachers and administrators on their own. And of course, these are children who for the last 2 years have not really had any trips. You know, usually the way the school works is 4th grade, one night overnight in Sacramento to learn about California, government. 5th grade, they go for a week to Boston to learn about our government in American history. And then in 6th grade, it's supposed to be a culmination of going to Israel. So of course, these poor children who've been in COVID land for the last 2 years get just thrust into an international trip. They had a wonderful time. It was really incredible. But the rest of my children, my 2 other daughters, have not been. And I haven't been in a very long time. And my wife and I haven't been together since I was in rabbinical school many years ago. So we turn to Lecha Dodi, all I can do is get excited about what happens when you are in Jerusalem, or if you're ever in the north of Israel, where Lecha Dodi really is representative of the beauty of Shabbat in our promised land. This idea of going out into the fields, or if you're in Jerusalem, to see the sun set over the old city, and the walls of the old city start to transform, and you get this golden glow to them. And so with this idea of warmth, of hope, of journeying, we move into Lecha Dodi, page 20.
Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'tibur echad, Ishmi'anu el ha'miyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, Shem u'tveret v'rutehila. Echad Dodi, Echad Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Dodi nigrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 2. Nigrat Shabbat lechu v'neilcha, Ki im lekor habracha, Mehirosh mikedem ezrucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi nigrat kara, Shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi likrat kara, Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5. Hit'oreri, Ki ba'oreku mi'ori, Uri, shir dameri, Kevod Adonai alech nigela. Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi
We rise, we turn to the back where we enter to greet the Sabbath bride.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, אדוני, לחדתי לקראת קרה, ונשבת נקרא, לחדתי לקראת קרה, ונשבת נקרא, לחדתי לקראת קרה, ונשבת נקרא, לחדתי לקראת קרה, ונשבת נקרא.
May be seated. Before we delve into the Baruch Hu and the rest of the service, we want to light our Shabbat candles. Traditionally, we have our B'nai Mitzvah families do that. We don't have any with us tonight. So I want to invite anyone who feels like they need the light of Shabbat, the warmth of Shabbat, who's looking for a little extra light in their life to come on up. It can be multiple people just to stand and be here. Come on up.
Don't be bashful. I'll give you advance points towards your bar bat mitzvah, whatever that might mean. Join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shabbat.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
With that, we now turn to the Baruch Hu, our call to prayer. Ask all of you to please rise, page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Can be seated. So we turn to Ahavat Olam, page 32, all about love, God's love for us, which will then be followed by Shema and then Ve'ahavta, about how we express our love for our own tradition.
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושינתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
I just want to point something out. Usually our tradition is to stand for the Shema. We did not stand for the Shema this time. And that there's a teaching by the rabbis that the Shema is so important. You're supposed to be so focused on the words that you're not supposed to distract yourself ahead of time. And since we were sitting, you would be distracted if you had to then stand up and reset yourself to say the Shema. So actually, in more traditional synagogues, they sit every time for the Shema. But when we go after we've been seated for a longer piece of music, if we were to then transition out of that by standing up, it actually potentially ruins the flow that is supposed to be directed from Ahavat Olam through Shema, and then Ve'ahavta is a part of Shema, so you're supposed to then continue straight through Ve'ahavta, which is a continuation of the Shema prayer. So I just wanted to point that out. We're going to continue with Mi Chamocha. Of course, thinking about water, since those new restrictions were put into place a couple days ago, and I already feel like my lawn is starting to become slightly brown. You may, I don't know if all of you are aware, but the first thing that exists in the world, verse 2 of Genesis, actually references something that comes before light and darkness, and that is water. There is actually water there before anything else is created. And then, of course, if we think about Cantor, Gurney and I will be next Wednesday up at the mikveh at AJU with about 5 students who are converting to Judaism. Of course, part of the process of becoming a Jew is to be immersed in mikveh, to be reborn, so to speak, to go into those primordial waters. And Michamocha, of course, is about the splitting of the sea, to what it means to actually figure out a way to not have to require that water, that actually water gets in the way of the Jewish people's ability to go from slavery to freedom. So what I'm doing for myself, and I urge you to think about this too, is usually we think of our lawn and we think of our garden as a sign of something that we should be proud of, right? It is an outward symbol of how we care for our home, which of course in Judaism is very important. And yet, I think in these summer months, especially with the severe drought that we're facing, can we turn that brown lawn not as a sign of embarrassment, but actually as a sign of pride? Can our brown lawn, because they're probably all going to turn brown at some point, can that be a reminder to us that we are doing the right thing? That in a time where there is such a drought, where there is such a need for water, can we go for these months and see that brown lawn and maybe the wilting flowers as a sign that we are doing what our tradition would say is the right thing to do? The primordial waters, how can we make sure that we do what we can to help this planet as much as we can? So we'll continue now with Mi Chamocha, page 40.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael,
Shamru is found on page 44. Oh, the Shamru? Oh, we can do Hashkivenu too. Let's do Hashkivenu.
Let's do Hashkivenu.
Page 42.
You see how we work together?
So easy.
Perfect
Hashkivenu.
marriage. We're very flexible.
Sukkot Shalom, this idea of the Sukkah of peace, as we're sitting outside, I'm already thinking about that fall holiday of Sukkot, but really every night when we say Hashkivenu, we're supposed to imagine this protective layer around us, around the world, and we definitely need that protection this week and every week lately. So we'll join together, page 42.
Circle the world again. May we be kept from hatred and war. May we be kept from hunger and pain. May the shelter of your peace encircle the world again. Back to me. He spread over us. He spread over us and all the
Shamru? Let's do it. Page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית העולם. Sing loud enough, you'll be on the live stream. There you go. Beni ulvene bene Yisrael, oti le'olam, v'shamru bene Yisrael et השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים, את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
The beautiful thing about this Siddur is there are these wonderful hidden, they're not so hidden, gems on the bottom of many of the pages. If you turn to page 47, especially this is good if you ever get bored with anything that myself or any of the other rabbis are saying, you can just look at the bottom of the page.
Or any of the Cantors, too, for that matter.
But there's some beautiful little nuggets here. One that I really love is this passage from Nachman of Bratslav. Every word of one's prayer should be like a rose that is picked from a bush. One gathers rose upon rose until a bouquet is formed and can be offered to God as a beautiful blessing. So the Amidah really is our opportunity to not only collectively bring our bouquet of prayers, but then after the Cantor leads us in the first few blessings, the Avot, Imachot, and Gevurot, we're going to take a few moments of silent prayer. You can use the words of the Siddur until the end of the Amidah, or your own silent bouquet of prayers, and then when we close the ark, you may be seated.
Adonai sifatai tivtach ulfi yagi tehilatecha. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Agadol, Agibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Chaste Avot ve'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch Ata Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Ata, Rav le'Hoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech mimit umechaya, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol. Baruch ata Adonai, mechayeh hakol.
Take a few moments of silent reflection.
רצון אמרי פי ניהול רצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וקולי Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you. Oh Lord, my rock and my redeemer.
We always take a moment to offer a Mishaberach, a prayer of healing. You can find it in the middle of page 253 in the Siddur. We are thinking of Bonnie Chiswick, Charles Schwartz, Marcy Siegel, Alan Soroti. Are there any other names of people whom you're thinking of who are in need of some healing that you'd like to share those names with us? Yes. Join together, middle of 253. Warning, I am going to ask for your participation in this part, so just be aware of that. Okay, we have a holiday coming up beginning Saturday night. Does anyone know which holiday it is? Shavuot, right? It's one of the big three. The other two big ones are Passover, and we referenced it during Hashkivenu, the Sukkot, right? Those are the three main ones in the Torah that are significant. Those were the three pilgrimage festivals in the Torah where Jews from all around had to come to Jerusalem and offer sacrifices and offer their gifts to God at the temple. So Shavuot, though within the Reform movement, liberal Jews not as widely celebrated and honored as I think it should be, because it's a beautiful holiday. It's traditionally celebrated by spending the entire night awake studying Torah. And one of the more traditional ways of doing that is to look at the Ten Commandments. Usually the Ten Commandments are chanted, you read the book of Ruth, and you discuss the Ten Commandments. And by the way, on Zoom Saturday night at 7:30, I think, you can join myself and Cantor Gurney and a variety of the other clergy as we're going to go through those 10 commandments. But I want to prep you because we're each going to talk for 5 minutes about each of those 10 commandments and our own interpretations and some of the things we can take away from those. But I wanted to know from you which of the commandments stands out to you as the most important. Now, of course, yes, they're all important. There are more, by the way, there's more. Does anyone remember how many commandments there are in the Torah altogether? 613. Good, very good. You're all excellent students. So I'm going to read out the 10 commandments, and I want you to be thinking of the 10, which for you personally at this point in your life do you feel is the most important? And then I'm going to ask you why, and I would love for some people to share why it is that you think that is the most important commandment. You cannot get this wrong. So it's just your opinion today, how you're feeling at the moment, okay? First commandment, I am the Lord your God. Okay, there's one God. Second commandment, no idols. You believe in one God, no worshiping other idols. Third commandment, do not swear falsely by God's name. Fourth commandment, keep Shabbat. Fifth commandment, honor your mother and your father. Sixth commandment, don't murder. Seventh, do not commit adultery. Eighth, do not steal. Ninth, do not bear false witness, in other words, lie. And the 10th, do not covet, do not want what someone else has. Okay, I'll go through them very quickly one more time. One God, no idols, do not swear falsely by God's name, honor Shabbat, keep Shabbat. Fifth, honor your mother and your father. Sixth, do not murder. Seventh, do not commit adultery. Eighth, do not steal. Ninth, do not swear falsely or lie. And 10th, do not covet, do not want what someone else has. So I'd love to hear. Someone have an opinion? We are Jews. I'm sure there's some opinions. Please stand up, say your name, and which one you think. No, you don't have to find. Don't stand. Say your name. Maggie Mayer. Which one? Number 4. Which? Keeping Shabbat. Why is that in your mind the most important of all of them?
The family. Number 4. The tradition, the time, the family. What's more important than that?
Okay, tradition, time, family. What's more important than that? Okay, Maggie says number 4, Shabbat. Yes?
Your name? Rick Frankel. Honor thy mother and father.
Okay, why?
My parents spent a lot of years becoming great ancestors, and by teaching their children diligently, as we hear every week in the Ve'ahavta. And if we, as parents, don't take that on in the same vein, Judaism cannot live forever.
Thank you. Also, just to point out about that commandment, it does not say to love your mother and father, right? It says to honor your mother and your father, which for the 4th graders, when I reminded them of that, were very surprised by that. What I didn't want to tell them, as you get older, your relationship with your parents can ebb and flow, and there will be times where you may not love them, but you still have to honor them. Okay, so we have 4, we have 5. Any others? Do you need a reminder, refresher? Do you remember what they are? Come on, there's got to be some more. Yes, stand up or just say your name real loudly. Which one? Hi, Joy. Okay, number 10, don't covet. Why? Joy was saying coveting is not necessarily just about physical objects. It's about things that we find like on Instagram or on social media, that our exposure in the world is to so much more than just physical objects, but characteristics of other people or the way they're living their lives, and that we can so easily get caught up in wanting something else and actually in the same time diminishing ourselves in the process. And that's why you believe the 10th is the most important. Great, thank you, Joy. Anyone else? Yes? Your name? Gary? Okay, Gary says, based on the horrific events that we have been seeing unfortunately on a weekly basis, almost daily, that thou shalt not murder should be the most important, because clearly we have a real problem in this country. Actually, before services even, I just saw a headline in the LA Times about the Encino Hospital, a stabbing there, and 3 people getting I mean, it is such a plague. If we think about the plagues and the 10 plagues, we are facing a serious crisis in this country right now. And so do not murder, definitely at the top of that list. Thank you. Any other ones? We have don't murder, Shabbat. Oh yeah, Cantor.
Joy's yours in a moment, because the sages, at least a number of them, argued that the 10th was the most important of all the commandments, because it leads or can lead to all the others, especially the negative, the don't do this commandments, right? If you covet, you're much more likely to commit any of those other sins. You want something, you might steal for it. You might kill for it. You want somebody else's spouse, right? So coveting is that core sin that can lead to the others.
Thank you, Cantor. And I would just, yes, in the back, nice and loud. Your name and which one? Ninth. Okay, the 9th. Niall says the 9th, which is do not lie. If we lived in a society where people were honest and honorable, we wouldn't have many of the problems that we have today. Very true. Thank you. Anyone else? These are all very good. I mean, obviously they all have significance. I just want to also highlight the first. I agree that the 10th is very significant. Of course, they all are. But the 10th really, the first for me is this idea that by recognizing that there is a God and there's one God, we don't put ourselves at the center of the universe. We realize that there is something bigger than ourselves. And that one of the biggest problems we face in our own lives and in society is when people put themselves at the center, believe they are God, act like they are God, believe as though the world revolves around them, and so easily we can get caught up in that as well. But if we can recognize there is a bigger force, that we are not at the center, that can also have a ripple effect as well. No more? Okay, these were all wonderful. If you want to learn more about all 10 of these commandments, again, Saturday night at 7:30 from the comfort of your home. You can tune in. Each of the clergy are going to spend 5 minutes on each of these. So you get 5 minutes on each of the commandments and learn a little bit more. I'm sure some of the things that you all referenced will be brought up. I hope they are brought up, and thank you for thinking about these things. And as you can tell, there is such depth and breadth in just these 10 commandments that it's no wonder that our tradition has upheld them in such a significant way. So Shabbat Shalom. At this point, a couple of announcements. Thank you all. You showed up at 6 and not at 6:30. That's good. You've read some emails. That's an amazing thing. Or you heard from someone else. So from this point forward, Shabbat services will be every week here outdoors at 6 p.m., and that's going to actually occur through the summer months outside and even beyond. So as we move into the fall and we move indoors with the closing of the Irmas Campus for renovations, the west side spot for Shabbat services will be here at Irmas every Friday night. And then if you do want to make your way once a month to the other side of town, to Koreatown, during the summer months, the last Shabbat of the month, so this month it's the 24th, I think we do a rooftop ruach, a service up on the roof there, overlooking the mountains and the Hollywood sign, and people bring their own dinner, sit there, have a little picnic dinner, listen to some music, and then celebrate Shabbat there as well. Any other announcements?
Here too. We're going to be setting up tables going forward, and bring your dinner with you. Plenty of time, and it's going to be so beautiful all summer long, right? And at a certain point, somewhere around 6:35, when it gets a little warmer, there will be hundreds and hundreds of birds in these trees. They come all the time, and at dusk, they sing their song. So, Aleinu.
Page 282, middle of page 282. Ask you all to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We turn to the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. We first mentioned those who passed away in the last month, in the last 30 days, a period of Shloshim, Jessica Bayer, David Burstein, Edward Cohen, Robert Bob Feldman, Ronald Fishman, Ashley Jaffe, Frank Rosenblum, Sylvia Schlosser, Myron Mike Sholem, Ralph Silberman, Sonia Wallen, Joanne Wolf, and Bert Zweig. And the yard sites that have occurred during this past week: Dale Alkov, Estelle Alt, Albert Altman, Randy Bank, Max Block, Jacob Brown, Charles Kohler, Edward Court, Sadie Crystal, Mary Edelstein, Gloria Farkas, Pearl Feller, Marcia Finkel, Etta Fisher, Jerry Fishman, Jennifer Friedman Chalk, Louis Garr, Lena Gilbert, Michelle Joy Gomberg, Phyllis Goodman, Helen Grobard, Evelyn Green, Charles Greenwald, Harold Gross, Ann Grossman, Herbert Haas, Sidney Hoffman, Rose Katzenhorn, Bruce Hubbard, Sarah Eisenberg, Clarence Jacobson, Donald Jacobson, Rose Jaffe, Ernest Kerr, Jack Kirschenbaum, Norton Lansing, Brett Lawrence, Belle Lerman, Sam Levin, Harry Levine, Dave Lewis, Elaine Rosenkrantz Lieberman, Ann Lubin, Samuel Lubliner, David Madnick, Harriet Maltzman, Shirley Minter, Louis Maldo, Ariel Moore, Evelyn Sachs Morgan, Catherine Orange, Netta Oringle, Doris Orlikoff, Seal Ostro, Joan Pansky, Wilma Pascal, Earl Pash, Anthony Perlman, Toby Rawson, Robert Ryan, Julie Rose Ralston, Albert Rosenblatt, Mike Ruby, Rose Ruderman, Jerome Saperstein, Dr. Victor Schiller, Gustav Schiller, Lily Schiller, Rose Schwartz, Samuel Shapiro, Lloyd Shapoff, Leslie Scherer, Leslie Shohan, Clara Siegel, Nancy Siegel, Alfred Silver, Harry Silver, Ralph Skluth, Henry Sloan, Alter Simpson, Stan Tashman, Sol Tivoli, Lou Wasserman, Harold Weisfeld, Philip White, Stuart Wine, Lloyd Winthrop, Suzanne Wolfe, Enrica Yu, and Dorothy Zinberg. Any other names to add to our yard site list tonight? We're in the period of Shloshim, 30 days since the passing of a loved one. If you could rise. If you are in your first year of mourning or you are here to commemorate a yard site, if you could please rise at this time. And ask all of us to rise and join them as we join together with the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'kadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divrach hirutei ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chay d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam al me'al maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da miran belma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'momav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
I want to thank our incredible musicians for leading us tonight, as they will all summer long.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Feel free to join us.
at the Kiddush table.
Yes.